Here's how to solo complete the main Easter egg on Liberty Falls. Now this is my extended guide, which is a more detailed step-by-step walkthrough covering everything in one video. If you're already familiar with completing some extra side quests, such as crafting the free jet gun and doing the Aetherella Easter egg, you might want to check out my more optimized solo guide, which is linked down below. With that being said, the first thing you need to do to start this Easter egg is make your way over to the church and interact with this machine to eventually spawn a Dark Aether scientist. Next, you'll need to acquire the jet gun. You can get this from the mystery box, by crafting a free one, or potentially by completing SAM trials. To get a free jet gun, the first thing we're going to do is head on over to the motel across from where you spawn and trigger this little zombie sequence to clear out a specific room. Inside that room is where you're going to eventually craft the jet gun, and it's just nice to open this up now to make things easier since the room is very tight and there's only one way in and out. Now we're going to collect 3 parts, starting with the Groundskeeper. I'd recommend buying your way out of spawn through the right side path up until you get to this 2,000 point door which leads to the church and cemetery. Now there's a lot of confusion regarding this Groundskeeper, but you'll notice here, before even buying into that area, if you pull up your map and take a look in the cemetery, there's a chance you'll be able to see when the Groundskeeper is actually spawned in. If you see his little dot there and you have enough points to open that door, you should be able to run in and kill him before he despawns. Now if you're trying to check in on where he is, or if you've already bought into that area but you haven't seen him yet, I believe all you have to do is flip the round and he'll eventually show up. He'll be dressed a bit differently from the rest of the zombies, and he'll also be labeled accordingly if you have those settings visible. Anyway, once you do kill him, he'll drop a key for you to collect, then make your way over to a shed in the Groundskeeper's yard and interact with the door to open it. Inside will be the Jet Gun's handbrake on a desk to your right. With that part done, now make your way back down toward the flower shop, which is in the Washington Avenue area. You'll want to go up to this water spigot and interact with it to collect the top valve. With that, you'll then need to head over to the bowling alley on the opposite side of the map and remove the front case of this pressure gauge by either shooting it or with melee. From here, you have to place the water valve and turn it to build pressure. Now this requires you to actively hold your interaction button until that pressure indicator reaches the end. But this is going to spawn a wave of zombies no matter how far into a round you are, so you'll only have a couple of seconds to make progress on this before you'll need to jump off and try to survive. This little challenge can be tricky on solo, but I found that if you kill off each wave as they come, you should have enough time in between to get back on the valve and finish up that progress. This may take a couple of rotations, so just take it easy and try to survive. Keep in mind though, if you leave the bowling alley for too long, or if you go too far, your progress with the pressure will begin to reverse, so I'd recommend just staying there until it's done. Once it finally is done, the water pressure gauge will pop out for you to collect. Now for the last part, you can actually get this in a couple of different ways, but overall, you're going to need a Mangler, which won't spawn in until about round 11. You have to try and get it to blast open the radio store, which is just across the street from Ollie's Comics. You can either shoot his cannon off and use that yourself to open the door, or if you stand at the front of the store and have the Mangler shoot a blast at you, a well-timed jump out of the way will essentially do the same thing. Once inside, you then need to dig up these piles of trash to eventually find the part you're looking for. It's worth noting that you can actually visit a crafting table and buy anything Mangler related to get this done as well, but you do have to be a certain level to unlock those items, and they cost a decent amount of salvage. Anyway, with all 3 parts collected, make your way back to the motel room crafting table and you should now be able to build the jet gun. Now if you get here and it still says additional parts are required, there's a very good chance you collected the Groundskeeper's key but didn't actually unlock the shed to get the handbrake part. So just be sure to double check that if you're having issues. Once you've got the jet gun, make your way to the comic book store and use the gun's primary fire to pull down this canister that's floating above the ceiling tiles. Next, if you head up to the Washington Avenue area and jump off the Speed Cola roof onto this truck, you should be able to see the next part you'll need to collect through the building's 2nd floor window. Again, just use the jet gun to retrieve it. Finally, make your way over to the church, and the 3rd part you'll need to retrieve can be found floating to your right when you first enter. Once you've got all 3 of those parts, you'll then need to zipline over to the bank's roof, or the Alamo as it's called in game, and you're going to craft the LTG device at this back workbench. Now you need to make your way back to the church and interact with that machine again to collect an Aether Canister. While holding this canister, you will not be able to sprint, but you can drop it if need be. So go ahead and carry that over to the trap in the Hill Street area, and you'll want to drop it near one of the trap's field mines. After that, you'll then head toward the cemetery and place the LTG device on this module that's surrounded by a small ether storm. Doing this will immediately begin a 60-second defense challenge, where you have to make sure zombies don't get too close to the portal and get zapped up. If they do, the portal stability will quickly deplete, which is indicated on screen. As long as you're doing a full rotation around the device and making sure to kill any zombie before it gets even close, you should be able to complete this without too much hassle. I found the best weapons to use for this are either the ray gun or the upgraded GS45, which is essentially just a single Mustang and Sally. You can actually buy this on the wall at spawn, so I would definitely recommend getting that and work on upgrading it. Anyway, if the portal stability is completely drained before the time is up, you'll just have to try it again on the next round by simply interacting with it. When you do complete it, what will happen is either an HVT Mangler or Abomination will spawn, and you need to try and damage it until you get a quote saying it's ready to be collected. You'll also know you've damaged it enough when it begins to glow purple like so. Now you need to run back down to the Aether Canister you placed, and wait for the HVT to get close. Once it's almost right next to it, activate the trap, then you need to try and kill the HVT while it's still inside the trap's energy field so the essence can be transferred into the canister. From there, you'll then need to pick the canister back up and return it to the same machine you retrieved it from in the church. Again, you will not be able to sprint during this, and you now also have to get there within a minute and a half. Now, if you do happen to fail a canister step and the time runs out, you'll have to carry the canister back to the trap, place it back down, then wait to respawn the HVT on the next round to try it again. Anyway, once you do place the canister into the machine, a small drawer will open up for you to collect the Strauss Counter, which will replace your tactical equipment. Now, before moving on to the next step, you'll want to head back out into the cemetery and retrieve the LTG device, since we'll need to use it again later at a different location. So, for the next step, you'll need to visit 3 projectors around the map and calibrate them. This is done by simply interacting with a projector until its top light changes. The first one can be found near PhD in the patch of grass outside the bowling alley. The second one can be found by ziplining up onto the bank's roof, then dropping down onto the Yummy Freeze rooftop. And the final projector is located in the Groundskeeper's yard, which is just past the Jet Gun's toolshed. Now, you'll know what color to actually set these to by pulling out that Strauss counter. When you get close to a projector, the counter screen will change to either green, yellow, or red. To successfully calibrate these, you're basically going to change each projector's color to the opposite of whatever your counter displays when in range. So a green counter would mean a red projector, and a red counter would mean a green projector. The only one that stays the same is yellow. If your counter reads yellow, simply change the projector to match. If done correctly, all 3 of them will shoot a beam of light towards spawn. This can take some time to actually happen, so just give it a couple of seconds after finishing that last projector. You can now also get rid of the Strauss counter since it's no longer needed. Next, go ahead and make your way to spawn, but along the way I would recommend visiting the bank and buying this left side debris. This opens up a faster path between these 2 areas, which we'll be using in just a second. Anyway, you'll now be able to collect a second Aether Canister from this containment unit at spawn. Again, go ahead and drop this one near the area's trap, and you'll now need to repeat the same defense challenge to spawn an HVT, this time at the Riverside Ether Storm. So, place down the LTG device, defend the portal, damage the HVT until it glows purple, then activate the trap to slow the HVT near the canister and kill it. And just like before, you'll have 90 seconds to carry this canister back to the church. If you actually head through the ice cream shop we just opened up, you'll be able to quickly zipline up to the bank's roof, then run across and zipline all the way over to the cemetery. Finally, once you place the canister in the machine, you're now ready for the boss fight. The best combo to take into this fight will always be an upgraded ray gun and jet gun, but it's also very doable with the upgraded GS45, as I mentioned earlier. You should also get all of your perks, full armor, monkey bombs, and an extra score streak like the Mutant Injector if you can either find one or craft it at a workbench. I would also recommend setting up the Aetherella Easter egg before this, because that thing is insanely powerful and it makes you invincible for about a minute and a half. To do that Easter egg, you'll need to retrieve 9 figurines around the map with the jet gun. Now these can be collected in any order, but the following route I'll be showing you is the easiest way to collect them so you won't be running back and forth too much. So, starting near spawn, the first one can be found outside the motel, resting on top of the building sign. If for whatever reason you can't retrieve any of these figurines, all you have to do is try and reposition yourself a bit for a better angle. Once you've got that, you'll now make your way over to the bowling alley, and if you jump onto the bus outside, you'll be able to see the second figurine resting at the base of the building's lettering. Now head across the street and zipline up onto the bank's roof, then drop down to where that second projector is located. If you angle yourself as I do in the video, you should be able to retrieve the third figurine, which is resting just beside some air ducts on the adjacent roof. After that, hop down and head over to the comic store, where you'll be able to find 4 more. There's basically going to be one in each corner of the store, but if you still can't find them, just use the jet gun's primary fire and they'll start to float towards you whenever you're close. Now make your way up to the Washington Avenue area, and if you look up at this AC unit on the side of the flower shop, you'll find the 8th figurine. This one can be a bit tricky to collect, so try stepping back a bit if you're having trouble. And finally, the 9th figurine can be found on the right side of the church, resting at the base of this window. Now the last figurine you collect will automatically turn you into Aetherella. So for this last one on the church's window, you'll want to actually try and pull it into the church by slowly moving through the entrance while firing the jet gun. We want that figurine to be available during the boss fight, so I recommend putting it in the corner to the right of Pack-a-Punch so it's out of the way and you won't accidentally claim it too early. Your jet gun will overheat a couple of times to get it there, but as long as it's out of the way, that should be more than enough. With that in place, you can now interact with the machine to begin the boss fight. Now this fight is fairly straightforward, but still quite challenging. You simply need to survive against waves of zombies, manglers, abominations, and eventually HVTs, killing them to charge the machine. There are 3 stages to this fight, each of which are broken up by either a max ammo or a max armor power-up. Most of the time you'll be surviving against zombies, but you'll need to pay close attention to the vermin as they can quickly delete your armor, so try to eliminate those ASAP. Speaking of armor, don't forget to replate and try to collect as much as possible from the ground so you always have some ready to go. There's also an ammo crate in the back corner of the church if you ever need it. As mentioned earlier, the ray gun and the jet gun, both upgraded, will significantly help in handling the first 2 stages. Also, if you have yourself a Mutant Injection, that can come in handy too. Whenever I get one in my game, I usually hang on to it until the boss fight, and then use it during the 2nd stage to take out at least half of the HVT Mangler's health. Now, once you've reached stage 3, an HVT Abomination and Mangler will spawn, so it's at that time I would collect the last figurine we stowed away to finally become Aetherella. She'll eventually fire lasers from her eyes, and all you have to do is point yourself in the general direction of the HVTs, and the lasers will automatically lock on. As you can see, this completely melts anything in its path, and before you know it, you'll complete the boss fight with ease. When you do, you'll actually go down at the very end, but don't worry, that's all part of the cutscene that soon follows. Good luck, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.